Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Introduction to Postgraduate Study Fees, Funding and Applications talk. So I'm Kari, I'm one of the student recruitment team here, and I will be facilitating the session. So if you do have any questions at all, please do pop them in our Q&A box. And if you could let us know what kind of area you're looking to study, if you would like to do that, or if you know which area you'd like to study, then please do so, and I can drop a message to our team so that they know how to tailor it. So we're joined today by two student ambassadors, Abigail and Kelly. Abigail is just coming to the end of her MRes course, and Kelly's just come in to the end of her MSc course. We're also very lucky to be joined by Bex, who works in our registry and admissions team, looking after PGC and school direct applications, but also works really closely with the others who cover the master's applications. And we're also joined by Deborah, who is kind of our go-to person of anything fees and funding related, and she can hopefully shed some light on the complicated world of funding. So without further ado, I am going to pass over to Debs.
Hello everyone, so I'm going to be talking about fees and funding relating to masters and postgraduate study. Could I have the next slide, please? So this is me. I'm the student funding advisor. I help with student funding queries. I administer emergency loans for students that need money for emergency situations. I offer budgeting and debt advice, and I also administer the University Hardship Fund for students in financial difficulty. Next slide, please.
And Debs, just while you're changing slide over, there's someone that's commented saying MSc Psychology.
Okay, all right, thank you. So what I'm going to cover is Student Finance England postgraduate loans for master's students. And if anyone's listening who's looking at doing a PGCE or schools direct courses, please could you let us know, because then I will also go through that funding as well. Please note these funding options do not apply to PG Cert or PG Dip courses. This is due to the length and credits. If you speak to the programme leaders of these courses, there is some subject specific bursaries and funding available. There's also a postgraduate doctoral loan for any students looking at doing a PhD. I'm not covering that in this talk, but you can always contact me for further information. Next slide. So there is a discount for alumni, so there's 20% off for Plymouth Marjon University alumni, and this is regardless of when you graduated. It does not apply to PGC in schools direct though. So the postgraduate loan for masters, so there is a loan of up to £11,222, and this is the 2021 figures. This is non-means tested and available from Student Finance England. This is available for students starting an eligible postgraduate master's course. If you're studying for 2, 3 or 4 academic years, then the loan will be divided equally across each year of your course. Next slide. So there is eligibility criteria, which includes nationality and residency. So to apply for a postgraduate loan, you must be a UK or EU national or have settled status, normally live in England and haven't moved here to study, have been living in the UK, the Channel Islands or the Isle of Man for 3 years before the start of the course. I'd advise checking the Student Finance website for further details, because there is more information there about this eligibility criteria. So if you're unsure, please do check that. Next slide, please. There's also age and previous study criteria. So you must be aged under 60 before the first day of the first academic year of the programme. Having a loan from a previous undergraduate course won't affect your eligibility for the postgraduate loan, and you can only get a postgraduate loan if you don't already have a postgraduate master's qualification or a higher level qualification like a PhD. You can still get a master's loan if you have a PGCE or a postgraduate diploma or certificate. So for example, if you did a master's qualification and then decided later on that you'd like to train to become a teacher and did a PGCE, you'd still be able to get funding for that, and vice versa. If you do a PGCE, then in the future you want to do a master's. There's two different types of funding for that, and that will be absolutely fine. Next slide, please. So there is a list of eligible courses. One thing to consider is that your programme must award a full master's degree worth 180 UK credits. So you won't be eligible to get the loan if you carry over credits from previous study. So for example, a lot of people will have a PG cert and they just want to top up by doing a certain amount of credits to get that to master's level, but you wouldn't be able to get a loan for that. You have to do the full master's course. It must be a postgraduate course and not part of a longer 4-year undergraduate master's. It cannot last longer than 2 years full-time or 4 years part-time. And there's a list of eligible courses there. If you're unsure, again, you can just contact me for clarity. Next slide, please. So postgraduate loan overview. Up to £11,222 will be paid directly to you, and it is a contribution towards course costs and living costs. There isn't a tuition fee element that gets paid directly to the university, so this is really important to consider, that that amount of loan needs to cover your whole course, including your tuition fees. So you choose how you use it. You don't get an adult's dependence grant, childcare grant or parents' learning allowance with the postgraduate loan. And your loan will be divided equally across the full length of your course. So students on 4-year part-time courses, for example, will receive 25% of their loan each year of study. The annual amounts will then be split into 3 instalments, which are pretty much equal during each academic year. So much like undergraduate funding, you would get a payment each term. Next slide, please. So things to consider. So withdrawal. If you decide to withdraw from your master's course, you can't normally receive more than 1 postgraduate loan. However, exceptions may apply if you have compelling personal reasons for not being able to complete your original master's course. So you would need evidence for that. Managing finances. So unlike undergraduate funding, like previously mentioned, there's no additional dependence grants, so the affordability to do a master's does need to be fully considered. Benefits. If you're eligible for benefits, then you must let your benefit provider know that you'll be starting university and provide them with your postgraduate loan entitlement summary when received. This is because 30% of your postgraduate loan will be counted as income for your benefits, so they would need to readjust the amount that you're entitled to while studying. Next slide, please. So Disabled Students Allowance, DSAs. These provide help towards the additional costs a student may face as a result of their disability, and this includes mental health conditions or specific learning difficulties such as dyslexia or dyspraxia. So eligible students may be entitled to DSAs of up to £20,000. This is not a monetary award, but it goes towards any specialist support and equipment that a student may need to assist with their studies. This is available in addition to the postgraduate loan, and it does not have to be repaid. It's not affected by household income, and it looks at the specific needs of an individual student to see what support they may need. Next slide, please. Application overview. So postgraduate loan applications for 2021 are now open. When it's time to apply, you go to the gov.uk student finance site. If you've applied for student funding previously, for example, on your undergraduate course, then you'll still have the same customer reference number and online account, so you can log into that and apply via the postgrad route. You only need to apply once per course. You don't need to apply each year, so the loan is there to cover you for the whole length of your course. Next slide, please. Repayment overview. So repayment will start the April following course completion, subject to meeting the annual income threshold, or if your course is longer than 4 years, you'd need to start paying it back the April 4 years after the course started, as long as you're earning over the threshold. So the threshold for master's loans is an annual income of £21,000. So you'd need to be earning that or more to pay back your loan. Much like the undergraduate funding, any postgraduate loan balance will be written off 30 years after the date you enter repayment. Next slide, please. So your postgraduate loan repayment will be calculated at 6% of any income you earn above the £21,000 threshold. So these will be paid back alongside any existing undergraduate loans. So if your undergraduate course started after 2012, the loan repayments are calculated at 9% of any income you earn above the £25,000 threshold for your undergraduate degree, and 6% of income above £21,000 will be paid for your postgraduate course. So it might be the case that depending on how much you earn, you might start paying back your postgraduate course before you start paying back your undergraduate. And if you started your undergraduate course before September 2012, there's a different threshold. So 9% of income above 17,335 will be repaid for your undergraduate degree, and again the 6% of income above £21,000 for your postgraduate. Next slide, please. So for more information, it's advisable to look at the studentfinance.gov.uk site. So that is where you need to apply, and it also gives further information about eligibility criteria and about how the loan is paid, etc. Next slide, please. There's also the student finance zone, so the student room. That's really useful for information about different types of student funding, and they also have forum sites, so there's specific times that you'll be able to speak directly to student finance advisors with any queries that you might have. Another really good website is findamasters.com. So they provide information on funding and general advice on doing a master's. So in the funding section, it breaks everything down really clearly, and there's a really useful FAQ section which answers a lot of queries that people might have about this funding. Next slide, please. So some students want to look at other types of postgraduate funding, and a good place to start is prospects, because it gives information about what other ways you could use to fund your study. Some students will look at employer sponsorship or research council grants, for example, but a lot of these require looking into by the student to see what's out there, and there may be an application process that you need to go by. So it's worth having a look at that to see how to go about the different types of funding as well. Next slide, please. So I usually would talk about PGC and Schools Direct here, but has any students that are listening highlighted that they're PGC or Schools Direct?
No, they're all okay. No, there is one for PGC funding actually.
Perfect.
That's fine. Yeah, perfect.
That's great. I'll carry on then.
Thank you.
So for PGCs and Schools Direct, the unsalaried route, you can receive funding from Student Finance England. Your previous undergraduate funding is not taken into account regarding eligibility. So if you took more years than the standard amount to complete your undergraduate, that doesn't matter when you're going on to teacher training. So you can apply for the same type of funding as undergraduate students. So you get a tuition fee loan, a maintenance loan, which has the standard amount and a higher income assessed amount, and any relevant grants that you might be entitled to. Next slide. So how much maintenance loan can you get? So this does vary from person to person. It depends on your household income. So when I say household income, that means if you are under 25, it'll be based on your parents or parent income, unless you are married, have a child, have been independently supporting yourself financially 3 years prior to the start of your course, or if you're a care leaver or estranged. If you're 25 and over, then if you live with a partner, it will be based on them, but if you're single, it's just based on yourself. So the best tool for understanding the funding support available to you is the Student Finance Calculator. So you can Google that, and it's really useful to put in your household details, and you'll get an estimate of the funding that you might be able to receive. You'll be asked if you want to give SFE information about your household income, and you are limited to a certain amount of the maximum loan available without it. Next slide, please. Sorry. So maintenance loan rates. So this table just breaks down what kind of funding you could be entitled to. So there's different rates for students living at parental homes or living elsewhere and living in London. So there is maximum loans amounts, and then there is the non-income assessed element. So all students can apply for that and at least receive the non-income assessed element. And then the income assessed element is based on household income. So depending on what the household income is, you could receive anything up to that additional amount. If you don't receive the maximum loan, it is expected for the household income to be making up that deficit. But if there's any issues with that, students can contact me for help and advice. Next slide, please. So maintenance loan rates for students eligible for benefits. So there is different rates for students that are receiving benefits. So there is a higher rate of income assessed loan. So again, it is broken down into sections. And if you are eligible for benefits, then you must let your benefit provider know that you'll be starting university and provide them with your SFE funding entitlement summary when received, because a proportion of your funding will be counted as income. Extra support. So for teacher training, you can still receive the student finance grants, which includes the parents learning allowance, the childcare grant, the adults dependents grant and disabled students allowance. So the parents learning allowance, childcare grant and adults dependents grant, they are means tested, so they are based on household income. The disabled students allowance isn't means tested, it's based on support needed for students. And if you want more information about the DSA, please do contact studentsupport@marjon.ac.uk and we'll be able to give you some further information. So PGCE and Schools Direct, applications for 2021 are now open, but I understand Bex is going to be talking after me and she's going to let you know about the applications for 2021 for teacher training. When you apply for your student finance, you go to the gov.uk student finance site. You will have the same customer reference number as your undergraduate, so you can use that account to get on there and apply. You need to apply early to make sure your student finance is ready for the start of your course, and you don't need to confirm place at university to apply. Just put that application in and details can be changed at a later date if needed. So there are teacher training bursaries as well. So I've put up on screen the 2021 bursaries. These are from the Department for Education, and it does change year on year because it is dependent on demand in those areas basically. So any students that are eligible for it, they will automatically receive it. It is based on entry grades and subject that you are looking to teach, but it's worth looking at Get Into Teaching website for more information about that, and they do update it pretty quickly for the next academic year, so keep an eye on that. Next slide, please. So my contact details are up on the screen there, so do feel free to contact me at any time through your journey if you have any queries regarding student funding. Also feel free to put any comments or questions that you have in the Q&A and we'll be able to answer them at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. Just quickly before we move over to Bex, I've had a question come in, so I think just a little clarity would be really good for everyone. So we've had a question around, do you get maintenance loan for masters? So would you be able to just re-explain that a little bit for us, please?
Yes, of course. So there isn't a specific maintenance loan. So with undergraduate study, you do have it split into tuition fee loan, maintenance loan, and any grants that you might be eligible for. But with master's loan, you get one funding, so one amount of loan, so it's not considered as a maintenance loan or grants or tuition fee loan. It's one loan amount which encompasses everything, so you need to use that to pay for your tuition fees, use it for your living costs, your course costs, so it's just the one payment. So it's not classified as a maintenance loan, it's just one loan.
Brilliant, thank you. Hopefully that's answered that question, but do pop in the chat if you have any more questions around that. Thank you very much, Deborah. I'm now going to pass over to Bex. If you could turn your camera on.
Oh,
thank you.
Don't know if you just like see my eyebrows there. Look like I'd gone a bit funny. Hello, everybody. Like Kari said, my name's Bex. I'm part of the admissions team here at Marjon. and I'm going to be looking at how to apply for postgraduate study. So this talk, or this sort of section, is going to be split into two bits. I do look after School Direct and PGCE applications, so I'm going to be talking about those, but in the past I've also dealt with the Masters applications as well, so I'm also going to be sort of starting with those and discussing how you apply for those courses. Deborah touched on it, but the PGCE and most of the School Direct courses that we offer have now closed for 2020 entry. So I will go through things in the second half on those courses, but that's going to be kind of aimed more towards 2021 entry. But if you've got any questions at all, you can just stick it in the question box and we'll answer it as we go through. Okay, so can I have the information on the slide, please, Kelly? Thank you. So there's two ways to basically apply for courses. Oh, there we go. So if you're looking to apply for a PG taught course, so that's a Masters, an MSc, the MRes, Master in Public Health, or our EYITT courses, you apply direct via the Marjon website. If you're looking to apply for a PGCE or School Direct course, you would need to do that via the UCAS website. The really good thing about our applying direct via the Marjon website is that we have a little bit more flexibility with that system because it's an in-house process. We don't quite have like the deadline dates and the kind of the rules that UCAS impose on us. So we'll have a look at what that application form looks like on the next slides. If I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so you can kind of see here the breadcrumb trail, so how you get to the Apply Direct application form on our website. So if you go to marjon.ac.uk and then click on Study, Apply to Us, and then there will be an option for Apply Direct. And this will be the first screen that you see. So this will be where you select your course choice and also you say which stage you want to enter. And that basically means kind of which year you're applying for. And when you click next, you will then get, I think it goes on to then personal details, but that's fairly straightforward. It's just sort of bog standard information. And then once you click next, you'll be asked to include information about your English language. Now, our direct application form is kind of all things to all people. So we use it for undergraduate part-time applications as well. So at postgraduate level, we wouldn't be quite so concerned with GCSE English language because that is a requirement for undergrad students, not so much postgraduate. The only time that we would need that information is if perhaps English isn't your second language, or if you're applying as an international or EU student. So if you had that information, you could pop it in, or if we needed it and it wasn't there, we'd get in touch once you submit your application. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so then you would go on to include information about your higher qualifications. So this is where you would include details about your degree. With postgraduate qualifications as well, course tutors can accept students on experience, so you may not have anything to include in this section, and that's fine if you don't, but just to give you an idea of what this would look like and the kind of information that you need to include. Can I have the next slide? Thank you. So the next bit is really talking about personal statement, which I think trips everybody up, whether you're an undergraduate or a postgraduate. I think as humans, we really struggle with selling ourselves. So I talked to a couple of the academics and I kind of said, what sort of thing are you looking to see in a personal statement? And one academic gave me this really great quote, which said, the better refined an application is in terms of expressing interest in a subject, the more likely an applicant is to convince me they are capable of doing the programme. So kind of with a personal statement, the academics are looking for a good length of personal statement. So because we don't have like a set minimum limit, we do get some applications that come through with just a sentence or two, and we would really recommend kind of providing maybe like a side of kind of A4, typed A4, because if you've got just one or two sentences, it kind of doesn't really demonstrate that you're in that kind of passionate about teaching. So we're really looking for that to come across in the personal statement, and to see that you're committed, because you're taking on this further study. That's what you're applying for, and we want to know that you're interested and going to be engaged in personal sort of the lectures and the work that you're completing. The academics are looking to see passion and enthusiasm for your subject. Again, you're taking on extra study. So what is it about the subject area that you're applying for that makes you want to complete that extra study? You could include details about how the study may help you in the future. If you're looking to go on and complete maybe a PhD, how that is all going to, how your postgraduate study is going to tie in with that, or it may kind of help you with career goals. It's really nice to get like a rounded picture of what you're hoping this course will help you achieve, and you can also include a little bit about work-life balance and how, if you've got any experience, how that all kind of feeds into your interest in that area. Very often with postgraduate study, you get people who have worked in a certain area and they want to kind of use the postgraduate study to move forward. So if that sounds like you, that's a good thing to include in your personal statement. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? So there will be a section on work experience as well. So if that is, if you have valid work experience, you can include that. And then there'll be a section for you to complete, and that will be the reference section. So you will need to provide a relevant reference with your application, for your application. You don't necessarily need to do it at the time of application, because you may need to contact a referee and get them to send it in. That's fine. There is an option to download a form, and then that can be completed, or the reference can just be emailed directly to admissions, and then we can add it into your application form. If we are able to make you an offer and we haven't received the reference at that point, we'll include it as a condition of the offer. And if you have any issues downloading the reference form, which sometimes people do, if you just contact admissions, we can send out a copy to you. So we would prefer an academic setting. Generally speaking, if you've been in academia within the last 5 years, we'd prefer an academic reference. But if you've just got an employment reference, if you've kind of focused more on work, that's fine. If that's relevant to the course that you're going for, and your employer is able to kind of speak well of you in that setting, then that's fine. You can include a reference from a colleague or line manager. We don't, like I said, we can email the form out to you, but admissions won't chase your referees. So it's your responsibility to get that information to us. And if there is any issue with a reference, or if we need an alternative reference, sometimes that happens, we'll get in touch and let you know. But that's nothing to worry about. Just sometimes the course tutors kind of prefer to get a couple of references, that kind of thing. But we'll let you know if that happens. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So what I'll do is have a little overview of the application process for the postgraduate taught courses. So like I said at the beginning, we have a little bit of flexibility with this. With the UCAS applications, you've got deadlines as to when you've got to make replies and things like that, and we can be more flexible with this system, which is pretty cool. So the whole process would be when you submit your application via the website. That would then come through to admissions, and my colleague who deals with the postgraduate courses would pick up your application and get that over to the course tutor. The course tutor would then let us know if they wanted to make you an offer, or whether they needed some more information from you. It may be that your application would be unsuccessful. That very rarely happens with postgraduate applications, because we tend to find that applicants get in touch with course tutors, so they have a good idea as to whether an application is going to be considered sort of well from the academic before they apply. So if you're made an offer, we'll get that processed, and then we'll get an offer letter out to you, and that will contain the terms and conditions. That will contain information about disability support, if that's something that you need to access, and also any conditions that you need to meet in the offer. If it's a case of providing more information, we'll just get in touch either by email or phone, or the academic for the course that you're applying for may get in touch and just have a little chat with you about your application. It's something that tutors quite like to do at postgraduate level. Normally people have done some fairly interesting stuff and they kind of include that in their personal statement, so they might give you a call to have a chat about that. But again, it's nothing to worry about. It's fairly standard for that level of study. So once you've got your offer, you would then let us know if you want to accept it. And then we would kind of work towards getting your results and your references in, and then it's the start of term. It all looks very easy when it's written down like that. And to be honest, I think this process is easier than UCAS. But yeah, that's what you're in for if you're looking to apply for a postgraduate talk course. So what I'll do is I'll go on and have a chat about the PGCE and School Direct application. So if I can have the next slide. So applying via UCAS for PGCE and School Direct is pretty similar. So if you've been through the undergrad process, it'll be fairly similar to that. So there are sort of some sections that are fairly bog standard, so I won't spend too much time on those. But obviously, if you're applying through UCAS, you'll have to fill in a personal details section, which will give you, which will give us contact details so that we can keep in touch with you. You'll need to fill in your education details, so where you've studied and qualifications, and that will include any qualifications that are pending, like your degree or maybe a GCSE equivalence qualification, and then you'll need to do a personal statement and also submit references. So references for the UCAS teaching courses, the postgraduate teaching courses, they're the last bit to do, like the undergraduate. So once you've filled all your details in, you'll put in your referee details, and then your application will be sent to them for them to complete the reference. And then once that's done, that's when the application is submitted to UCAS and processed and sent on to us. We do find that some students kind of submit their application and then they don't hear anything, and they get in touch and say, oh, I haven't heard anything. What stage is my application at? And very often in those cases, the referees still have to do their bit. So it's worth keeping in mind when you come to apply that if that does happen, it may be worth just checking with your referee that they've sort of crossed all the boxes and done all the things that they need to do. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so again, I'll focus on the personal statement here, because again, it doesn't seem to get any easier at postgraduate level. So again, I spoke to the academics to find out what kind of thing they're looking for, and they're looking for very similar kind of things, really. So passion for your subject is a must. Again, you're going on to undertake an extra year's study. So what is it about becoming a teacher? What is it about your subject that makes you want to teach and makes you want to engage with that extra study? It's always a good idea to include details of your experience, and this can take lots of different guises. So it could be that you've done some volunteering, you're involved with guiding or scouting, you've kind of mentored, or you're volunteering with like maybe you're doing kind of like coaching for school kids or things like that, or you're involved in a youth club or after school clubs. All that sort of stuff is really great experience and will help strengthen your application. The academics are looking for a strong qualification profile with good use of English, and that kind of ties in with the next point of good communication skills. You know, so this is effectively a demonstration of your written written work, so don't forget to spell check and kind of reread and make sure you submit the right draft of your personal statement. And obviously a personal statement for teaching needs to demonstrate a love of learning and teaching. So it all sounds fairly straightforward, but it can be a little bit daunting when you come to actually write the personal statement. So hopefully that gives you a good overview of what to include. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So like I said before, references for teaching, you would need to provide 2 references. Again, we've had some applicants this year who have used maybe two references from kind of like the same setting. So they may have used like 2 experience references or 2 academic references. It's best to maybe pick someone who knows you in an academic setting, and then maybe somebody that you've done some kind of like teaching or mentoring experience with. Not everybody will have that, so don't worry too much if you don't have both those types of references to draw on. Again, if there is any issue, the academic will probably just get in touch and we'll say, you know, we need a reference from this setting. And again, that won't be detrimental to your application. That doesn't mean anything bad. It just means that they want to see that extra information. Like I said, your application will only be submitted to UCAS once your references are complete. And we may ask for additional references. I'm galloping ahead here. I clearly know this subject like the back of my hand. So let's have the next slide, please. So I'll have a quick overview of the application process for these courses. Like I said, we have closed for 2020 entry now. The course has closed quite late, considering we sort of term starts at the beginning of September, and I would recommend getting your application in earlier than this stage. It's not a problem if you would come to apply this late in the year, but I think the more time you can give yourself to prepare everything, to kind of brush up on experience if you need that, or if you've got, you might have an SKE, subject knowledge enhancement course to complete. I think the more time that you give yourself to get prepared for the start of term, we find in admissions it's better in the long run. So you would apply via UCAS and you'll submit your application via the website. Once that's all been completed and processed, the application is then sent on to your choices, and we'll do an initial shortlist, and the applications will be sent over to the course tutor and they'll decide whether they would like to offer an interview. If that is the case, we'll send you a letter with information about the interview days. Our interview days have had a bit of a drastic overhaul this year, along with everything else, it would appear, due to COVID. So we'd like to try and make quite an event out of them. So you will have a chance to have a chat with academics. At the moment, we're doing it all online, which actually seems to be working quite well. I think for next year, we're looking at having kind of like a group meeting in the morning where you can watch a presentation and kind of sort of see some of the other applicants as well. We're trying to get around things like campus tours as well, because they were offered on our regular interview days when we could have people on campus and all the rest of it. So we're looking at sort of providing alternative resources for that. But they're a really great day. You get a chance to have a feel for academics. You can kind of see how you gel with academics. You can see how you can have a look at the campus as well, hopefully with like online campus tours and things like that. So they're a really great way to get a feel and feel if Marjohn's going to be a good fit for you. So once you've come to the interview, we'll then do our decision processing. So the academics will let us know whether they want to make you an offer or not, and then we'll get that up on UCAS. You then have the option to make your replies. So you would decide which institution you want to accept as a firm choice and which you'd like to decline. And then we will kind of get in touch and sort out getting results and getting the professional checks done, like a DBS check and online health assessment. And then once that's all sorted, we'll confirm your place. We'll let you know about bursaries as well if you're eligible for one of those. And then we'll get you ready for the start of term, doing online enrolment and registration. So yeah, it's worth pointing out that we're kind of in a bit of a weird moment of time with this process, because we're kind of transitioning over to a DFE led application process in 2022. I think it's 2022. So at the moment, there are two systems being operated. And although this is the application process and the way that it all works this year, it's entirely possible that there may be some more changes coming in next year. So if you're looking to apply for these courses for 2021, I would thoroughly recommend keeping an eye on the DFE information and on UCAS as well. Because we're sort of still in this cycle, we're not quite sure what changes will be put our way as yet, but UCAS and the DFE website will definitely keep you updated if there's anything specific that you need to do for application for 2020. So I think that's it. What's on the next slide? All my details. So yeah, like I said, my name is Bex. That's my telephone number, which I found we've had a new system this week, which has been very exciting to get to grips with. I found out that number, I'm not entirely sure if that's working, but our telephone number for admissions is 01752 636 890, and that will take you through to one of the team. If you haven't had enough of listening to me talk, you can specifically ask for me and they'll pop you through, or you can drop us an email at admissions@marjon.ac.uk, and we'll be happy to help and pick up your query. So I think that's it.
Great. Thank you, Bex. Yeah, we have had a question come through.
Okay.
So if someone's already applied for a master's and they feel that maybe they haven't quite done themselves justice in the personal statement, is there a way they can go back and add more?
No, it's a bit of a funny system, because once your application's in with us, you can't really do anything from an applicant side of things. However, if you were to send us like a supplementary personal statement, or if you wanted to just sort of us to replace the one that's on your application with a new one, if you just email that over to admissions and just explain that you'd like to replace your personal statement, we can do that from our end.
Brilliant, thank you. If anyone does have any more questions, please do pop them in the chat now. So just while we're doing that, Kelly and Abigail, very quickly, I will come to you first, Kelly, and then Abigail, you second. How did you find kind of the application process for kind of your masters? Kelly.
Yeah, so the application process is really easy, so much easier than UCAS. So I just finished my masters, so applying for Marjon was so much easier. It was done quicker than UCAS. You don't have to wait for them to follow on, but yeah, it was done really easily. I spoke with my tutor to see if he would be my referee in the morning. By the next day, it had all been submitted, and within about a week, I'd heard from them and I received my offer. And it was really easy to sort out the last little bits, like a first aid, DBS kind of thing, as well. So the process is so much easier to sort out going via the Marjon website. So yeah, really easy, no problems. And Bex and the admissions teams are so good. If you have any problems, get in contact with them, and they're so much easier, and they'll help you if it's to do with references or anything else. So yeah, no, really, really easy.
Oh, thanks, Kelly. I feel like I should get you to put that in writing.
Definitely should. And I've just had one pop up just regarding student support. So I have replied to it on the chat, but just so everyone knows, our university departments are all working. They might be working in a slightly different way, but they are all working. So the best thing to do, especially just while we get the new phone system up and running, is just to email them. You should get a bounce back saying kind of how soon you can expect a reply. And then obviously if you don't get a reply in that time, which will be unusual, but if for any reason you don't, just drop them another email or try and get in touch via phone, and they should have phone links by that point as well. Okay. Abigail, in terms of your application, similar things to Kelly?
Yeah, I found the whole process really straightforward. Like Kelly, I definitely found it a lot easier than applying via UCAS. I had a couple of questions when I was applying, and so I just emailed the team and heard back really quickly. Like Kelly, I heard really quickly about sort of the results, and everything was communicated really clearly. It was just a really straightforward process. And I also found that was similar for applying for student finance, because as Debbie said earlier, it is applying with, if you've had student finance before, it's applying with the same customer reference number, it's applying through the same system. So I definitely found there were far fewer hoops to jump through to get student finance sorted this time. And I found it quite manageable as well, having the one loan. So the way I managed that is that I would go to, as soon as I had the instalment paid into me, I would go to our finance team and I would pay that instalment of the course fees out of the money that I've been paid. And then the rest of the money I sort of put aside for rent, and so just worked to eat and do other nice things during my masters, and just use the rest of it for rent money. And obviously everyone's got their own way of doing it, but paying the university as well was a really straightforward process.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you for that, everyone. So the kind of really the only thing to do now, if we have no other questions, is really just to say, obviously, if you do have any queries, please do get in touch. Deborah, am I right in thinking student support for emails to get in touch with finance funding queries, or directly to you?
Yeah, either or really, because if they send it to student support, it will be directed onto me, or email the student funding at Marjon email account, whichever you remember easiest.
Brilliant. I am just popping the student funding email address in the chat for you all. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope that's answered some of your questions. There are other live talks that you may be interested in happening over the next few weeks. And what I'm also going to do very quickly is just pop a link for a survey that we're just kind of doing just to kind of see how useful these events are and how we can improve them going forward as we look at hybrid events over the next year or so. And I've just popped that in that chat now. So if you are able to quickly go and do that just as we finish and just open the link now, that would be lovely. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. And hopefully see you at Marjon at some point soon.